Have you ever looked in the mirror and felt like your hair just isn't what it used to be? Maybe it feels flat or too soft. Or like, no matter how you style it, it just won't hold volume. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. As we get older, our hair changes. And if you have thin, fine hair, those changes can feel even more frustrating. But here's something comforting I want you to know. There are a few small mistakes many women make without realizing it. Mistakes that could be standing in the way of your hair looking thicker, fuller, and healthier. The good news? They're easy to fix once you understand them. I've been doing hair professionally for many years. I've worked with tens of thousands of clients. And these 5 things? They come up more often than you'd believe. So let's walk through them one by one. You might be surprised how a tiny change could make a big difference in how your hair looks and how you feel when you see yourself in the mirror. Ready? Let's begin. This is one of the most common misunderstandings I see, not just from clients, but even from stylists who don't specialize in fine hair. People often say, "My hair is so thin," but what they really mean is that their individual strands are fine, and that's an important difference. Because if you mistake fine hair for thin hair, or vice versa, you might use the wrong products, the wrong haircut, or the wrong styling techniques. Let's break it down in the simplest way possible. When we say fine hair, we're talking about the diameter of each strand. Imagine holding a single hair between your fingers. If it feels very soft, silky, and barely there, it's probably fine. Fine hair can feel luxurious, but it's also more prone to falling flat, especially if there's a lot of it. Now, when we say thin hair, we're talking about density. That means the number of strands you have per square inch on your scalp. Someone can have thick, coarse hair that's thinning, which means there's just less of it overall. Or someone can have a full head of baby-fine strands that's not thinning at all. The two situations look very different. But here's the tricky part. Many women confuse the two because both can lead to the same problem: hair that looks flat or lacks volume. That's why it's so important to know which one you're dealing with. Let me give you a visual metaphor. Think of your hair like a bowl of soup. The texture of each noodle is your fine or coarse hair. The amount of noodles in the bowl, that's the thin or thick part. You could have superfine noodles and still have a bowl that's completely full. Or you could have only a few thick noodles, and the bowl still feels a bit empty. So what does this mean for you? If your hair is fine but dense, you'll want lightweight products that add grip and lift without weighing things down. If your hair is coarse but sparse, you'll want to focus more on boosting overall coverage and fullness, possibly even with strategic haircuts, color placement, or toppers. Knowing the difference can also help your stylist make better recommendations and help you avoid frustration when something doesn't work. Because it's not always your fault. It's just that no one ever explained the real difference to you before. But now that you know, you're one step closer to working with your hair instead of constantly trying to fight it. Let's imagine this for a moment. Your car starts acting funny. It makes a strange noise, and it doesn't drive like it used to. Your friends chime in with their advice. One says it's the engine. Another says it's probably the battery. So you go ahead and spend money replacing both. But when you pick the car up from the shop, it still doesn't drive right. Then someone points out the obvious. You had a flat tire the whole time. That's exactly what it's like when we try to guess why our hair is thinning and treat it without knowing the real cause. Hair thinning is deeply personal, and it can be emotional too. For many women, it doesn't just affect how they look. It affects how they feel about aging, femininity, and self-confidence. So it's understandable to want to fix it quickly, but guessing the cause or trying the latest trendy solution often leads to more frustration. Because not all thinning is the same. Some hair thinning is due to genetics. If the women in your family experience thinning after menopause, chances are you may too. Other thinning may be related to hormones, especially during menopause or after childbirth. Some women lose volume due to medications, like certain blood pressure meds or antidepressants. Others may have underlying thyroid issues, vitamin deficiencies, or autoimmune conditions like alopecia areata. Even stress, something as simple and everyday as anxiety, can lead to temporary hair shedding, called telogen effluvium. So here's the key takeaway. If you've noticed your hair becoming thinner over time, especially if it's more recent, it's worth talking to a dermatologist or your primary doctor. A few simple tests can often give you clarity, and once you know what's happening inside your body, you can make smarter choices outside. Maybe your thinning is reversible. Maybe it can be improved with supplements, lifestyle changes, or medical treatments. Or maybe it's something you'll want to manage with styling techniques, volumizing cuts, or hair pieces. And that's okay too. What matters most is knowing what you're really dealing with. Because the last thing you want to do is spend time and money treating the wrong issue. And trust me, I've seen it happen to smart, beautiful women far too often. When you take the guesswork out, you bring the power back in. Power to decide what works for you, what feels right for you, and what steps will help you not only look better, but feel more like yourself again. There's something subtle, almost invisible, that can completely transform how full your hair looks. And that's color dimension. Yet it's something so many women overlook, especially women with fine or thinning hair. Maybe it's because the word color brings up images of harsh dyes, high maintenance, or costly salon visits. But here's the truth. When done correctly, adding color, even just a little, can create the illusion of twice the volume. Let me explain how this works. When your hair is all one color, it tends to look flat, no matter how beautiful the shade is. There's nothing for the light to reflect off of. There are no shadows, no highlights. Just a solid, smooth surface. And while that might sound sleek, it can actually make your hair look thinner than it is. On the other hand, when you add lowlights or highlights, even just a few tones lighter or darker than your natural color, something magical happens. The hair gets depth. It starts to catch the light in certain areas and fall into shadow in others. That contrast tricks the eye into seeing more movement, more volume, and more density. Think about a painting. Flat color looks two-dimensional, but add a little shadow, a little light, and suddenly that same image has life. Hair works exactly the same way. Now, you might be wondering, won't this create high-maintenance grow out? The good news is it doesn't have to. There are techniques like balayage, baby lights, or soft low-light weaving that grow out beautifully and subtly, especially on gray, silver, or white hair. A stylist can work with your natural shade, just adding gentle tones here and there to create movement without harsh lines or constant touch-ups. In fact, many women only refresh this kind of color once every 5 or 6 months, or even just once, and let it fade out naturally. And if you're worried this is just something stylists push to make money, let me say this: I'm not your stylist. There's no salon appointment waiting on the other side of this screen. I'm sharing this because I've seen it change how women feel about their hair, especially women over 50 or 60 who thought their hair couldn't look full again. It can. You just have to stop seeing color as a risk and start seeing it as a tool, not to cover up who you are, but to enhance what's already beautiful. And for thin, fine hair, that enhancement can be everything. A little warmth, a little contrast, a little sparkle. It all adds up to hair that moves, shines, and feels full of life again. This might surprise you, but one of the simplest things you can do to keep your hair looking fuller is to stop touching it so much. I know, it sounds too easy, almost silly. But if you have fine or thinning hair, your hands can actually be one of the biggest reasons your style falls flat throughout the day. Let's break this down. After you've washed, dried, styled, and maybe even teased or sprayed your hair, it looks good, right? But then what happens? You tuck it behind your ear. You smooth a fly away. You push it back when it falls into your face. You twist it when you're thinking. You run your fingers through it because it's become a habit. Each one of those little gestures transfers oils, dirt, and moisture from your fingers to your strands. And the result? Your roots become weighed down faster. The volume you created in the morning starts to collapse by lunchtime. And by dinner, your hair may look limp, greasy, or lifeless, even if it's technically clean. What's worse, constantly playing with your hair can also cause breakage, especially if it's fragile or fine. Think about it. Fine hair is naturally more delicate. It doesn't take much for it to weaken, especially when combined with heat styling, weather, and daily stress. Now I get it. Touching your hair is often unconscious. It can be soothing. It's something we all do without even noticing, especially when we're nervous, focused, or distracted. But breaking the habit is one of the easiest, most cost-free ways to help your hair stay cleaner and fuller longer. So what can you do instead? Try this. After styling your hair, set it in place with a light, flexible hairspray, something that holds but doesn't make your hair stiff. This helps discourage your hands from reaching up because the hair already feels finished. If you like to freshen up throughout the day, keep a small comb or pick in your purse and use that instead of your fingers. It feels more intentional, and you'll avoid the oil transfer. And here's a trick that works for many of my clients. When you feel the urge to touch your hair, redirect your hands. Hold a cup. Clasp them gently in your lap. Rub a bit of hand cream between your palms. Bonus, your hands stay clean and your hair does too. Little by little, you'll notice a difference. Your hair will stay bouncier. It'll stay fresher between washes. And best of all, you'll keep that feeling you had right after styling for hours longer. So yes, it's simple. But don't underestimate the power of letting your hair just be and keeping your beautiful hands out of it. Let's talk about conditioner. It's one of the most essential steps in hair care, especially for keeping your strands soft, smooth, and protected. But for women with thin or fine hair, it's also one of the easiest steps to get wrong. And unfortunately, the consequences show up quickly. Flat roots, greasy-looking hair, and a style that just won't hold. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. Here's the mistake that many people make: applying conditioner too close to the scalp. Now I know what you might be thinking. Isn't conditioner supposed to help all of my hair? Yes, but not all parts of your hair need the same kind of help. The roots, especially on fine or thin hair, are naturally newer, softer, and healthier. They usually aren't dry or damaged unless you've chemically treated them. But the mid-lengths and ends? They've been through heat tools, weather, brushing, and time. That's where you really need moisture. So when you apply conditioner to the roots, it often doesn't help. It just weighs everything down. Especially for fine hair, this means losing volume, bounce, and lift at the crown. And once your roots get coated, it's harder for styling products, like mousse or volumizing spray, to actually work. So what should you do instead? Here's a simple technique I teach clients of all ages. When you're in the shower and it's time for conditioner, flip your head upside down. Apply a small amount of conditioner starting from the mid-lengths to the ends of your hair. Use your fingers like a comb, gently working the product through just the areas that need it most. Avoid the root area completely. Then, while your head is still tilted, rinse it out thoroughly, letting the water flow downward so any leftover product moves away from the scalp. This technique is especially useful for short to medium-length styles. Think pixie cuts, bobs, or lobs, where it's easy for conditioner to touch the roots by accident. Even if your hair is long, the same rule applies. Keep the moisture where it's needed. Let the top stay light and airy. If you use leave-in conditioner or treatment sprays, the same concept works. Focus on the ends and not the crown. Remember, the goal isn't to stop using conditioner, it's to use it intelligently. Because when you do, you create the perfect foundation for volume. Your hair feels soft, but still holds shape. It looks healthy, but not heavy. And it stays fresher between washes. Small change, big payoff. All it takes is a little awareness and a new habit in the shower. You'll be amazed at how much difference it makes, not just in how your hair behaves, but in how it feels to run your fingers through it afterward. Light, lifted, alive. So now you know. It's not just one thing that makes thin or fine hair look flatter. It's not just the shampoo you use, or the weather that day, or even your age. It's a handful of small habits and misunderstandings that, over time, quietly take away the fullness, lift, and confidence you once felt in your hair. But the beautiful truth is this: every one of those mistakes can be changed, not with expensive treatments, not with miracle products, but with knowledge, awareness, and gentle, thoughtful adjustments that respect the hair you have, instead of fighting the hair you don't. You've learned today that the words thin and fine are not interchangeable, and that understanding your hair's true nature is the first step to treating it kindly and styling it effectively. You've seen how guessing the cause of hair loss can lead to wasted time and frustration, but asking the right questions, getting a real answer from a doctor or dermatologist, opens the door to solutions that actually work for you. You've seen that color, when used intentionally, isn't about vanity. It's about light, movement, and depth. The smallest highlight can make the biggest difference in how full your hair looks without demanding endless maintenance. And maybe the most surprising lesson? That your own hands might be undoing all your effort. That simply not touching your hair so often could help it stay lifted and clean much longer. And finally, we talked about conditioner, that comforting product we all rely on. But even that needs to be used wisely, especially for hair that's delicate or lacking in density. When you apply it the right way, mid-shaft to ends, you give your roots the freedom to rise. You create space for volume to live and last. So here's what I want to leave you with today. Thin hair is not a flaw. Fine hair is not a weakness. They are simply characteristics, like eye color or the shape of your hands, that you get to work with, not work against. When you approach your hair with understanding and care, something beautiful happens. You stop chasing volume and start creating it, naturally, effortlessly, confidently. You stop criticizing what you see in the mirror and start appreciating the softness, the lightness, the grace of hair that is uniquely yours. And maybe most importantly, you remember that looking good is not about chasing youth. It's about honoring yourself at every age. Every fine strand, every soft wave, every silver highlight, they all tell a story. Your story. And that story deserves to be seen, fully, proudly, and with joy. If this video helped you understand your hair a little better, I'd love for you to stick around and watch the next one we created, all about the best haircuts that add volume without losing length. Because your next great hair day, it might just be one click away. I'll see you there. Take care.